Number 12 from the review package, solve the following absolute value equations. Remember, the first thing about absolute value equations is they must look like the rule before we get to invoke the rule. And the rule says absolute value by itself on the left-hand side. So that's how we'll attack this first one. We've got negative 4, absolute value of x minus 2, minus 9 equals negative 37. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to shift this negative 9 to the right here. We're going to add it to both sides. So we're going to have negative 4, absolute value of x minus 2 equals negative 37 plus 9, which is the same, of course, as saying negative 28. So negative 4, x minus 2, negative 28. Then we're going to divide both sides by negative 4. That's going to give us x minus 2 on the left equal to positive 7. Now, if it didn't equal positive 7, it would have an answer called the null set, right? Remember this symbol right here? Like that. That looks like the null set. But it doesn't, so we're not going to have that. So let me just undo that one, get it out of there. Because we actually have an answer, right? Remember, our answer goes something like this. X minus 2 equals 7 is one answer, and x minus 2 equals negative 7 is the other answer. Here, this one says x is going to be equal to 7 plus 2, otherwise known as 9. This one says that x is going to be equal to negative 7 plus 2, otherwise known as negative 5. So 9 and negative 5 are our two answers for part A. All right, part B, it already has the absolute value on the left and a number on the right, and that number is not negative, so this one's ready to go. And so we say x squared minus 4x minus 5 equals 7 is one way to pursue our answer. And then a little bit over here, x squared minus 4x minus 5 equals negative 7. All right, in both cases, we want to bring that 7 or negative 7 from the right to the left so that it equals 0. So x squared minus 4x minus 5 minus 7 equals 0. X squared minus 4x minus 5 plus 7 equals 0. Okay, on this one we're going to have x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Over here we're going to have x squared minus 4x plus 2 equals 0. All right, the good news is the one on the left is factorable, but the one on the right is not. We're going to have to do the quadratic formula on this one. So let's factor the one that we can factor here. So this is going to be x, and x certainly still equals 0. Let's see, factors of 12, that would make 4. That would be 6 and 2. So we'll put 6 here and 2 here, and the 6 will be a negative, and the 2 will be a positive, meaning that x is going to be negative 2, and x is going to be positive 6. There's 2 of the answers. Over here, let's do the quadratic formula. X is going to be equal to negative b, so in our case, a negative of negative 4, plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times a1 and c2, all divided by 2 times 1. All right, so that's going to give us positive 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 times positive 1 times positive 2 is negative 8, all over 2. So right now we have 4 plus or minus 8 in the square root, all over 2. The square root of 8 is the same as saying the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. And the square root of 4, of course, is 2. So we could write this as 4 plus or minus 2 square roots of 2 all over 2. And then this 2 can go into the 4 and to this 2. And so really this one could be saying 2, because remember 2 into 4 is 2, plus or minus 2 goes into this 2, 1, and we don't write that one, the square root of 2. So there's 2 of our answers, and here's the other 2 answers. There were 4 total answers on this one. All right, for part C, it goes kind of the same way. We say x squared plus 6x equals 8, and x squared plus 6x equals negative 8. So in both cases, we want to bring that 8 to the left so that it equals 0. X squared plus 6x minus 8 equals 0. X squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 0. All right, so we've got these set up. I think the right one is going to factor, and the left one we're going to have to use the quadratic formula on again, because there's no way to make a -8, which would mean we'd have to have a plus and a minus for the factors of 8 and make 6. The only thing that would get us that high would be 8 and 1, and that gives us 7, not 6. So this one's going to have to be done with the quadratic formula. This one here can be factored. So let's go ahead and factor that one right now. We're going to have an x and an x. Looks like we're going to have a 4 and a 2. 4 and 2 make 6, and 4 and 2 multiplied make 8. So it looks like x is going to be -2, and x is going to be -4. Over here we have to use the quadratic. So x is equal to -b, so -6, plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times a1 and c -8 all over 2 times 1. So that's going to give us -6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared 36, -4 and a -8, that's plus 32 all over 2 times 1, 2. Thanks to the power of Microsoft Paint, let me shrink this down so we have just a little bit more room to work. All right, we've shrunk that down. We've got a little bit more room to finish this one off now, which is going to tell us that this is equal to -6 plus or minus the square root of 68 all over 2. Now, the square root of 68 can be broken down. I know 4 goes into it 17 times. And so what we can say is this is the same thing as saying -6 plus or minus. Now, the square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 17 is 17, and it's all over 2. And then much like the second one that we did, 2 can go into 6, and 2 can go into 2 here. So let's draw this one over here, where you have a little more space, and get the final answer then. So -6 divided by 2 is -3. X equals, of course. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And so we'll call this one -3 plus or minus the square root of 17. So you've got -3 plus or minus the square root of 17. You've got -2. You've got -4 for the answers for part C. Part B, you had 2 plus or minus the square root of 2, and then -2 and 6. And then part A had the answers of 9 and -5. And there is review question number 12.